if the wages of sin is death, then wow. We talk about me being a multimillionaire. Yeah, I'm a multimillionaire, but on the wrong side of these scales.
You are loved by God. Well, Jason Brown, welcome to See Hear Love, from my home to yours. How are you doing today?
Doing awesome. Thank you for having me.
Amazing. So where am I interviewing you from? You are in North Carolina?
We're in Lewisburg, North Carolina. And right now, I'm in our farmhouse, right on the farm.
Beautiful. I can see that behind you and it looks beautiful. Well, I think the most important thing is to get this out of the way. So I am a Green Bay Packers fan, a cheesehead, and my husband is a hardcore Buffalo Bills fan. So just getting it out there, because I know that you were with the Baltimore Ravens and the St. Louis Rams, and I don't know what who you like cheer for now, but if it's going to cause animosity, we should get that out before we interview.
With that, just as long as it's not the Patriots, all right? Any Patriots, and we're good to go.
And for all my friends who are like Patriot fans, are like, Anyway, no, that's right. Good. I was going to actually wear my cheese head during the interview, but I don't think it would be so professional. Anyway, let's start off with that. When you were growing up, Jason, because I want to hear some of your backstory, were you always like in love with football? I know you were with track and field as well, but was football your thing, your sport?
Football was never my number one go-to thing. Actually, it was always academics first. I always thought that my avenue was going to come through the classroom and through the books. But my high school coach came to me one day and said, "Hey, don't you know you can earn a scholarship playing a sport, playing football as well?" And I was like, "Really?" And so starting out, it was actually a business decision.
Really?
Yes.
Wow. So you decide, okay, I'm going to go the scholarship for football. When did you meet your wife, Tay? Was that before you became a professional football player?
Yeah, definitely before. That was towards the end of my first year at Carolina, UNC Chapel Hill. And so now my wife, Tay, she's a Dookie. She's a Duke Blue Devil. And so we were on the opposite ends of Tobacco Road, that big rivalry, not really between football, but more so basketball.
Okay. All right. So you decide to then go into professional football. Talk to me about that whole process, because a lot of us don't know about what that entails and what it's like to be like a professional NFL player. Kind of give us a picture, maybe the good and bad and all of it.
So there's a big leap from the high school level to the collegiate level, but there's an even greater leap from college to the pros. And that's because the talent pool is so very small. And it's what it means to be a professional at its highest sense. You're playing against some of the best athletes in the entire world. And the thing is, no matter how good you think you are, you have to bring your best every single day, because if you don't, someone's going to take your job. All right. So someone's going to catch you slipping and you'll get embarrassed very quickly.
So when you're at your sort of top of your game and you are like the top center, like what was life like? Give us sort of an inside picture of that. Because I think a lot of people are like, wow, I mean, he must have been living the high life and millions of fans watching and adoration to you. I mean, what was that like? What was the good of that, but what was also the really difficult, hard part of that too?
So now I did buy into the lifestyle, hook, line, and sinker. I watched MTV Cribs, growing up, thinking that how that lifestyle will be able to afford me everything that I wanted. And so, of course, I thought that was the American dream. But at the top of that mountain, it was pretty lonely, because the thing is, what good is the American dream when you're leaving behind all of the Americans? And so it was a very lavish lifestyle in St. Louis. We stayed in a 12,000 square foot mansion, but all at the same time, it was also very lonely. Everyone hears the cliche that, hey, money can't buy you happiness. But when people hear that, they say, well, you know what? If I have a lot of money, I'm going to be different. You know what? They think that they're going to be the exception to the rule, when in actuality, is not very different. All right. It's very lonely up there.
Mm. How was your marriage during that time?
So I was going, the route of course, the big ego, fame and fortune. And there was a lot of my character that was self-serving. Well, when it came to Tay, in her own right, she had just graduated from UNC Dental School and she was a doctor. And everyone knows, hey, women's empowerment, all right, go out there and make a name for yourself as well. And so I was a professional in the highest sense, and Tay was a doctor. She being a professional as well. And the thing is, we're both chasing after these accolades, and we're both chasing after the world, when really, where's the focus on the family, right? Where's the focus on home? And so at that point, we kind of lost a little bit of ourselves, and we also lost a little bit of our relationship as well.
Wow. Jason, I think a lot of people end up in that space. Let it professional sports, but I think even within ministry and church. I mean, I'll be honest, like even my husband and I, even though we work in, like, he works in international development and I'm doing media, we have to intentionally, consciously choose each other, or we could literally get lost in the work that we do.
That's right.
What's your advice for people like that? Because sometimes you focus on, well, you know, I need success, or, the more that I am successful at work, the more money I get to provide for my family, make all these excuses. And then we actually don't make choices toward each other. For those that are in that same place that you and Tay were, what would you say to them? What's some of your encouragement?
So you have to challenge yourself on these definitions, on these constructs. Of course, what the world and society tells us what providing for our family looks like. But in actuality, we have to look at our Bible. We have to look at God's word, and what it describes as what providing for our family looks like. And that's love. That's quality time. Jesus, he wants an awesome, intimate relationship with us. And at its deepest core, that's what a marriage is. A husband and a wife, just sharing love and spending some quality time together. But it's really hard when you're chasing after the world all at the same time.
Yeah, that's good. So you're at the top of your game, Jason. You've got a contract, $37.5 million, which is like astonishing and like astronomical amount of money. But I'm even, for me personally, I'm like trying to conceive that as far as work. Wow. And you decide to leave it and do something completely different. And even sitting there saying that, I'm like, it's like, and I talked to some of my friends about, they're like, what? He did what? Like, it's a shocking thing. Let's talk about why you decided to leave that. You were the top paid center in the NFL. Why you decided to leave it and where you went.
So in that big mansion one evening, I had an awesome encounter with Jesus. And Jesus told me, today. And I said, no, Jesus, tomorrow. Just like I always said 1,000 times, tomorrow, I'll give my life tomorrow. Just like the song says. But Jesus said, no, Jason, today. And he cared and loved me so much that he showed me a vision of my future. And here's what he showed me. He showed me my brokenness. He showed me the divorce. He showed me all the pain. He showed me the bankruptcy. He showed me that I wasn't even in the same state as my children were. I wasn't even able to hug them and hold them when I wanted to. And in the end, I saw myself on my knees, all alone, weeping. And the weeping and the gnashing of teeth, surrounded by demons. And they're all just pointing fingers at me like, you're so stupid, Jason. You see, what your true reward is? And I said, no, not me. And Jesus said, yes, that is going to be you, unless you humble yourself and repent. And I said, Jesus, I know that you can redeem and restore my marriage. I know that you can save my family. Whatever you want me to do, I'll do it. You say the words and I'll do it right now. I know that you can save my family. And in the middle of that, I heard a clear, audible voice that said, pour it all down the drain. And that sounded quite strange. I said, Jesus, I said I'd do whatever you want me to do. What's going on? And again, he said, pour it all down the drain. And so in that mansion, we had 2 bars. And I'm not even a drinking type person, but if you have 2 bars, the cool thing to do is to stock them with top shelf liquor, right?
Mhm.
And so I had all of these uncorked bottles, and the bar in the basement, it was almost 20 feet long. And so,
Wow.
so instead of uplifting the name of Jesus in our home, we were uplifting the name of, Captain Morgan and Jack Daniels. But in obedience, I uncorked every single one of those bottles and poured it all down the drain. And that was my first act of obedience, my first act of submission to Christ. And you know what? It was one of those Jesus take the wheel moments,
Yeah.
right? Where you just feel so liberated and you feel so comforted at the same time, because I wanted to be in control. As much as I was holding the wheel, of course, I was headed towards disaster and destruction. And so fast forward, he did it. Of course he did it, right?
Mhm.
And back to Jesus, and I said, man, you're good at this, like redeeming and restoring relationships. He's like, yeah, like I know that's what I do. And so well past that first act of obedience, I said, well, what else do you want me to do, right? I'll do anything. I told you I'd do anything. And then that's when God placed in my heart to feed his people and to be a farmer.
To feed his people and be a farmer. So you were a professional football player and farming. When that came to you, basically from God, what was your response? Like, I mean, like you're playing, you're in this big mansion, you've just poured down, the booze, and feed my people. Some people might think that's like, okay, well, maybe be a preacher, or you know what I mean, feed them spiritually or do something else. But farming, Jason, had you ever done farming? Was there anything about farming that connected you with farming?
So that's why you have to be so careful. It was one of those be careful what you pray for moments, be careful what you wish for moments,
Yeah.
because when you open yourself up to God and you're that vulnerable and you say, I'll do whatever you want me to do, you don't know what his response is going to be. If you had told me 10 years ago that I would be on a farm, a beautiful farm, working every single day, getting my hands dirty to feed people, I would have laughed at you. All right. I would have thought that was the craziest thing in the world. But I look back at it now and it makes all the perfect sense.
Tell me why it makes the perfect sense. So you leave it all. You leave professional football. You leave that massive contract to become a farmer and to feed people. How was that transition for you and the family? And what kind of farm and how are you feeding people now?
So it started with, of course, the call from God, and
Mhm.
then a leap of faith. God calls so many people every day to do some pretty awesome things, but then comes the obedience, right?
Mhm.
Um, Fortunately, and I say fortunately because it was still a very tough decision. I took that leap into the unknown, not knowing where I was going, of course, not knowing a thing of what I was doing, and not even owning any land back in North Carolina. But all the while, God was telling me, in me, there's no failure. All right. Just keep walking, Jason, walking in faith, and I'll guide your steps. And for me, before being a control freak, all right, me wanting to be in control of my life, that felt so uncomfortable, all right, walking into the unknown. But here's the covenant that my wife and I made with God. We said, whatever land you bless us with, wherever you lead us, we're going to call that land First Fruits Farm. And we're going to give the first fruits of everything that's grown from that land to your people, to our neighbors you have called us to love. And what does love actually look like, right? In Matthew 25, Jesus tells us that whatever you have done for the least of these, you have also done for me. And so the thing is, I know we're in America, one of the most richest countries in the world, but yet there's suffering all around us. And when we see that suffering, there's also the opportunity for compassion, to
Mhm.
actually share our hearts, to share our best, and give compassion and love to our neighbors. And so, on its most practical sense, that's what we're doing through our food ministry, growing food, which North Carolina, unfortunately, is one of the most food insecure states in our country, ranked 10th actually. 1 in 5 children in some counties, it's as high as 1 in 4 children don't know where their next meal is going to come from. So I know we look at missions in other countries. I know we look at so many other things that we can do, but there's a lot of need in our very own backyard. And this is what God has called us to do.
Incredible. So you didn't know farming. How did you learn farming, and what kind of produce are you growing in your farm?
So I get a lot of laughs when I tell people I learned how to farm from watching YouTube videos. So
Awesome.
it's natural for me because I watched a lot of film while playing football. We watched hours and hours of film every single day. I would break it down, emulate what I saw, and transfer it over to the football field. And so here at the farm, I can naturally watch hours of videos, break down what I see, emulate it, and transfer it over to the farm field. It actually kind of natural.
So the skill of what you learned in football actually was, like you say, transferable to sort of learning, watching, taking it, emulating it onto the field, and now literally a field. Oh my goodness, Jason, I'm getting it now.
I know, right?
I'm getting what God was meaning.
So, like, mind blown. It's one of those like Karate Kid, Mr. Miyagi type deals.
Yes.
Where, Mr. Miyagi, I'm painting a fence. What does this have to do with karate? And Mr. Miyagi, the whole time it's like, watch Danielson, you'll see. All right. Of course, I'm preparing and playing football, thinking about what does any of this have to do with farming? But there's a lot of similarities. Very many.
Okay, so what are you growing?
So North Carolina is the sweet potato capital of the world.
Oh.
More grown in North Carolina than any other state. All right. It's also our state vegetable. It's very nutrient dense, and so the core of what we grow, that's a lot of sweet potatoes. It works very well for our soil and our climate here, as well as many of the thousands of volunteers that come and visit our farm every single year to help grow and love.
That's I love sweet potatoes, especially with a garlic aioli sauce when they make them as like little like sweet potato fries.
Nice.
All right. So, I mean, that's amazing. I'm now seeing the connection. I can see, that's amazing, Jason, when I think about sort of God's plan, because it seems so, like when I was looking to say, I want to interview you, it seems so different, the connection. But when you put that together, it's like God knew. I think it's for everybody. I think that's a good lesson for all of us. It's like, it may look so incredibly strange and abstract and extreme, but I love how already the skills and thinking were there while you're playing football to do this great work in farming and feeding your neighbors and friends in North Carolina. That's incredible. That's a beautiful, wow. That's just beautiful to connect what God is doing. Jason, in that, this show is about why Jesus. And I've been loving listening to some of the people that have been talking about why they follow Jesus, and hearing your story, I can see that thread. But I want to hear from you. Why do you follow Jesus? Why Jesus over anybody else or any other religion? Why Jesus?
I tell you what, he deserves all credit. He deserves all the glory, all the honor. People have no idea, with all that money that I had, staying in that huge mansion, just how miserable I was. I went to bed every single night, stressed out of my mind. Woke up every single morning, stressed out of my mind. I'm talking about the demons. They were already like taunting me, all right, day and night. And Jesus took all of that away. That there is no source of comfort, joy, and peace that this world can give you. It can only come from him. And even though I'm working harder now than I ever did playing football, all right? And I'm working for free, okay? all for his calling, all for his glory, all right? Working harder now. I have responsibilities like way above my head. But ask me how I sleep right now. I sleep like a baby.
Mm.
The joys that he has brought, not just me, but my family. When we first got here to the farm, our third was on the way, little Noah. And now we have 8 awesome, beautiful children growing up here on the farm. And I tell this to everyone, a farm is the best place to raise a family. We have, free range children, okay? So pasture raised kids, just out here, just running around. And I owe it all to Jesus, everything.
Jason, that's beautiful. Let me ask you, why the emotion? As soon as you started talking, there is this deep, deep soul core emotion that came out of you.
Unless you've been there, very few will understand. Gotta forgive me. All right. You really got me with this one. All right. You really got me with this interview. I had no idea you were going to have me over here bawling. All right. But since you started talking about my Savior and my best friend, I had a boldness for the world. All right. Since my youth, I had a boldness, and I went out there and I was the best towards the world. Little did I know that, I was gaining the world and yet losing my soul all at the same time. I knew from an early age exactly what I was supposed to be doing. I grew up in church, grew up in the Bible Belt. I heard about Jesus. I heard the stories. I heard other people's testimonies. And like I said before, I said, whatever, I'm going to live my life. But the thing is that all the while I was chasing after the world, I didn't know how much of a hole I was digging for myself. All right. If the wages of sin is death, then wow. We talk about me being a multimillionaire. Yeah, I'm a multimillionaire, but on the wrong side of these scales. And the thing is, there's nothing that I could have done in my own might, nothing that I could have done in my own effort that could have saved me and pulled me out of that ditch. It was all Jesus. And so that's why I'm so ashamed that I knew about the gospel, but yet I still rejected him. I'm so ashamed that I took advantage of Jesus so many times and used him as a whipping boy for my own personal gain. And he is so much more than that. He is so worthy. And that's why I owe him my all. I owe him everything. So to God be the glory.
Yeah. Jason, thank you for that. I was going to follow up with a question, and I don't think I need to now, because I think for our viewers and listeners, they get it. And I think many of them, many young people are pursuing success and money, their own desires, and don't think they need Jesus. But I bet, Jason, that most of those people that we see that are successful and wealthy on Instagram and living their life are deeply lonely, are deeply
Yeah.
disconnected from people, relationships broken. And I'm not trying to make a judgment call on them. I'm just saying, hearing you with everything that you had, I mean, you were married too, but yet there was this hole because you're trying to fill it with all these other things that were not the real thing, which is a real and true relationship with Jesus. And I
Yeah.
feel that I really appreciate the vulnerability and authenticity that you are, that you are showing, because I think that's real. I think people need to know that when we choose him, we get it. And we
Yeah.
look back and go, man, because Jason, I did the same thing. I call it my prodigal years. I mean, I grew up as a missionary kid. I was adopted by missionaries in the Philippines. I came to Canada, had it all, knew Jesus, and completely walked away for years and got myself in so much trouble and pain and had to find my way back. And now I look back and I'm like, those wasted years. But I think that, I love that God redeems and restores and gives us new dreams and visions like he did for you. And then we take that and we feed people, and we listen to people, and we share with people, and we invite people to the table and to their tables. Like, that's what it's about, right? And so I am so encouraged and inspired by you in your life. Really. I think many who are listening and watching will be too. And just wanted to thank you so much for your life, your obedience and faithfulness, and for your voice today. So thanks
Amen.
for being with us on the show.
To God be the glory. Thank you.